Talking with some friends, and I thought it was going to, be a class that might be well attended, and really well attended. And so we decided to call it Legends of the Industry, because these four artists up here are definitely legends of the industry. I can tell from the photos already. That's something that I don't know. And if you know what a legend is, if you've thought about that ever, if you think, what does that word mean? Well, it can be someone who's notorious. Or it can be a story from the past that has come to be legendary, and these four people absolutely have some legendary stories and some legendary information for us. But I wanted to just start off by having them each tell us a few things about themselves, and I'm sure they can all do it in about a minute. And then, conversation might pick up. I have a few questions for them just to keep things moving along. Tonight I'm playing Jay Leno, trying to keep things on track. So we'll start over here with Mr. Drucker. And tell us a little bit about your career and past.
Hi, and I just want to say Naomi and I are maybe you have to turn it on.
Hello.
There you
go. Modern design. Naomi and I are very happy to be here to see a lot of clarinet people and just meet and greet and be part of this event. Bob Valutis is a fairly new friend. When did we meet? In 2008.
Yeah.
I never even knew his. I never heard of him at that point. He was recommended, and we needed somebody to fill out our section on a tour to Asia, which included a historic, they said, trip to Pyongyang, to North Korea. And they said, this is a good guy to get. He plays very well, and so forth. And usually you have to find out for yourself, and I found out that it was the correct information. He was a good colleague. He didn't faint on the stage, and he did a fine job. Well, anyway, talking about one's career, I mean, everybody knows pretty much the true things and the not true things about people that are written about. Most of the stuff they said about me is true. And the other thing is I played the clarinet a long time, so it used to be part of me all the time. Now it's part of me part-time. But when we get to questions and so forth, I'll be happy to answer more. But I'd like to introduce my wife, and she'll tell you a little bit of her background and who some of her teachers were. And one of them was particularly famous for most clarinet players. Naomi Drucker.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. I started playing the clarinet when I was 9 years old because my father had a clarinet. And I was 8 and going to go into the 4th grade. And I have to tell, can you hear me all right? Yeah. Yes. I have to tell you that by the time I was 12 years old, I knew I had found my voice. And I only wanted to become the greatest clarinet player in the world. So luckily I married her. At this time.
Well, I'm going to take off from where Naomi ended with a little different angle. I'm going to tell you a quick story. It says a little bit about who I am from another perspective. I was at a party about 15 years ago. Maybe that's what Robert was referring to as some of those bad boy habits that creates a legend. And at the party, there was a singer there, David Van Ronk. Some people might remember him from the 50s. He was one of the great influences on Bob Dylan. And it was Peter, Paul, and Mary's 40th anniversary party. And I told the story about Toscanini. And after all the NBC Symphony broadcasts, Toscanini, after leaving Studio 8H, he would go down to Little Italy, and he would have a delicious meal, and he had an entourage with him. He was like a rock star, like Prince, and and he would go down to the village. And one Sunday, there was an Italian man, an elderly man, playing the organ, and he had a monkey jumping on the organ grinder. And he was playing the melody from La Forza del Destino on the organ. Well, Toscanini got infuriated because he was playing the tempo too slow. He went over to the organ grinder and said to him, "Vergogna, shame on you for ruining the great music of my teacher." And there was about 3 people there, and they threw pennies into the basket. Down the village, they used to call that the basket concerts in the coffee houses. And so he was on the street off of Mulberry and Grand. And Toscanini looked into the basket. There was about 15 cents in the basket, which I guess was a lot of money in 1948. And he yelled at him. The following Sunday, he comes back, and he sees hundreds of people around the organ grinder with his monkey. And the tempo was just perfect. And Toscanini looks up on a tenement building, and the whole side of the tenement building, the organ grinder painted, "I am a prodigy of Arturo Toscanini." So all you need is 15 seconds with a maestro, and you make a lot of money. Thank you. Now, my pleasure to hand it over to Larry Gomes.
I'm the only one here not from Long Island. So I'll try to speak in such a way I can be understood. But I was born in Charleston, West Virginia, and began to study the clarinet at the age of 10, similar to what your experience was. But by the age of 16, I was playing principal clarinet with the Charleston Symphony. I can't imagine what that was like, and I certainly can't remember. But then I studied at the Eastman School with Stan Hasty, and started listening to all of the players I could find recordings of, including Mr. Drucker here. So that's the kind of learning process I think is very, very interesting to have, to become familiar with different players, different styles, different ways of approaching. So that's basically, I played for a while in the New Orleans Symphony, so I understand Louisiana speak, yeah. And then I played in the Montreal Symphony for 5 years, and then came to Chicago, which is where I am now, but at a much more relaxed pace because I left the orchestra. So that's in a nutshell. We should go to Stanley.
Did you learn it?